It's now time for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. And Al, we're into the home stretch of 2019. How's everything look out there?
Well, Troy, yes we are. We're into the last month of the year, and it's been a terrible year for much of the center part of the country due to all the flooding. And of course here in Nebraska, the major flooding event as we seen last March, and then a continuation of planting delay issues. Lots of rain this summer. We had some very difficult times in terms of getting our pastures harvested and hayed up properly, low quality forage, problems with rain as we got in toward the harvest period and extended harvest period. Now we're dealing with some of these snowstorms, and now the cold air is coming in. So I think we'd all like to say good riddance to 2019. We only have about a little over 3.5 weeks to go. But overall, as we go through this next 7-day period, I think the major emphasis for the state of Nebraska is going to be just the cold temperatures. And if we go to the upper air models, what it will draw your attention to is that we have a large trough to the west, have a ridging in the center part of the country, and we have some Arctic air to the north that is going to start to surge down toward the later half of the weekend. In the meantime, it doesn't look to be too bad of a weekend. Low pressure at the surface stacks up in eastern Montana and southeastern portions of Colorado. No moisture to bring convected northward. Most of it is confined to the western United States. By the time we get to Sunday, though, that energy starts to move into the southwest and drives out a trough, and then we see the reinforcing cold air trying to move in from the north. Low pressure tries to develop in southeastern Colorado and the Texas Big Bend region, but most of the activity will still be confined into the Intermountain region. But by Monday, this trough starts to move out, and we get the cold air surging into the Central Plains. That brings cold air high into our region, pushes most of the major storm activity to our south. Low pressure developing in Texas will start to energize and move up into the eastern United States. We see some flurry activity across eastern Nebraska, but we see major snowstorm in the northeast. And then on Tuesday, very cold air sets up across the center part of the country as high pressure basically in control from the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico. A little bit of light snow is showing. I think this might be overdone on Tuesday, but more importantly on Wednesday, we do get a little bit of relief as this trough moves off rather quickly. We get kind of a zonal flow, so we'll get a little bit of warming as we get into the Wednesday time period, back to closer to normal. Low pressure once again tries to develop in southeastern Colorado. We do have a low pressure moving into the Pacific Northwest, spreading some flurry activity. But on Thursday, as we start to see this trough moving in, it builds a ridge, and that also means that on the east side of the Rockies, we can start to build another trough. Polar air starts to filtrate back in. Low pressure developing in eastern Montana may slide toward the south, generating some flurry activity across eastern Nebraska and the Dakotas. And more importantly, as this ridge builds even farther north, bigger cold air mass starts to move toward the south. Here's that low pressure system in the Nebraska Panhandle, expected to kind of move and then re-energize this active pattern toward the east. So we left high and dry with a major activity once again to our east. And again, we're looking at another major storm next weekend across the northeastern United States. For us, we'll probably hold the cold air in at least through next weekend. If we look at the 8 to 14 day forecast, they are indicating from next Thursday following Tuesday that the cold air will shift to our east, but I am seeing signs that we will continue to see the cool air spill into our region. So I think we're going to be closer to normal to slightly below normal as the warm air remains in the western United States as the ridge starts to build northward. In terms of precipitation, I have a hard time believing this forecast in terms of precipitation for Nebraska. We may see that above normal across the northern plains, but it doesn't look like any active patterns are going to impact the vast majority of the state unless this system slides right down the eastern side of the Rockies late next week. Otherwise, most of the activity is going to slide into Texas, then move up the eastern seaboard for a very aggressive precipitation pattern. So overall, Troy, it looks like some very cold air for the next week, but overall, we're not expecting any major storm activity, at least here in Nebraska.